It's time to get your news on. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
And it is the national news from the WIA for week commencing January 19, 2025, Australia's longest running continuous news program. This week, WIA directors Chris VK3FY and Peter VK4EA, WIA affiliated clubs coordinator Angelo VK2NWT, and the exciting news of the week, Australia and our fourth spaceman set for a mid-March launch. And wait, there's much more in this edition of news from the Wireless Institute of Australia. I'm Editor Graham, VK4BB.
This news originates from the Wireless Institute of Australia. Dreaming, believing, achieving.
The Wireless Institute of Australia wish to advise members that the 2025 Annual General Meeting will be held on the Saturday, the 3rd of May 2025 in Bendigo, Victoria. The AGM is to be held in conjunction with an Amateur Radio and Technology Expo to be hosted by the Bendigo Amateur Radio and Electronics Club. A program for amateurs, partners and the general public is currently being developed by the Bendigo Club, and announcements detailing the event and the program will be advertised shortly. Much work has recently gone into the membership system, and issues with renewal notices being misdirected into junk email folders seem to have been resolved. Members who have not received a renewal notice should make contact with the Secretary of the WIA, Peter Klee, VK8ZZ, as soon as possible. Similarly, work on upgrading the WA website has commenced, and it is expected to be completed in time for the AGM in May. This has been WA Director Krista Matrievich, VK3FY, on behalf of VK1 WIA Weekly News.
Happy New Year to all listeners. This is Peter, VK4EA, WIA Vice President. It is pleasing to see 5 director nominations have been lodged before the due date. Our returning officer has accepted the nominations, and with more than 4 nominations in play, there will be an election this year. Notification of the nominees are due in the next AR magazine, along with the details of the new electronic voting system. And for the information of members, the common licence for the WIA news rebroadcast is about to go into place to protect the WIA branding. There's no huge change for anybody doing the good work of the rebroadcasting. Thanks, guys. Shout out for WIA Awards nominations. If you feel somebody deserves recognition, here's your chance. We need those nominations before the AGM to be held in Bendigo, Victoria, early in May this year, 2025. Please go to the WIA website for award details, nomination process, etc., etc. And cheers for now. This has been Peter, VK4EA, on behalf of the WIA Board of Directors.
Hi everyone, this is Angelo, VK2NWT, WIA Affiliated Clubs Coordinator. And today I want to talk to you about the WIA Club Events Calendar. Now, I'm sure most of you know that the WIA webpage has a club events calendar, which is a simple yet very effective tool to advertise your club's activities. Disappointingly, however, very few clubs actually take advantage of this great facility, creating the impression that nothing really happens at amateur radio clubs, which we all know is far from the truth. Now, just because it's an activity at your individual club, it doesn't mean that other clubs or anybody looking at the events calendar wouldn't be interested in what your club is up to. After all, aren't we trying to increase the interest in amateur radio? So I strongly urge you to spread your club events to the world via as many platforms as you can, starting with the WIA Club Events Calendar, and showcase what your club activities are and hopefully entice newcomers to amateur radio and your club. So if your club has a weekly or monthly activity, such as an upcoming contest field day, a poacher expedition, a balloon experiment day, a club field day, technical presentations, a barbecue, or any other club event, what's the point in keeping it to yourselves? Tell the world. Logging your club activity on the WIA Club Event Calendar is very easy and can be done in just a few minutes. If you have monthly activities, then why not enter them in for the coming months whilst you're there? Simply navigate to the News and Events section at the top of the WIA homepage, select News and Events, then select Submit a Calendar Event and fill in your details of your next club event. I've included the direct link in the text version of this news segment to help you along. Club event registrations lodged via the WIA website are automatically sent to the calendar manager and will usually be posted to the club events calendar within 48 hours. If you have any questions about the club events calendar or anything to do with WIA club affiliation matters, please don't hesitate to contact me via email at vk2nwt@wia.org.au. This has been Angelo, VK2NWT for VK1 WIA National News.
Across Australia, from VK1 WIA, you're tuned to the WIA National News Service. In Melbourne, it can be heard on VK3 REC 147.175 MHz at 9:30 AM. I'm Peter, VK3YE.
Australiana. Earlier, in 1977, Qantas flew the first commercial tourist overflight of coastal Antarctica. Dick Smith, VK2DIK, conceived and initiated these airline flights over Antarctica with his first flight made by a chartered Qantas aircraft, Feb 13, 1977. The coastal overflights have continued ever since, but on 27th of November 2022, a Qantas 787 Dreamliner did the first overflight that ventured all the way to the South Pole. Now taking steps, giant leap kind, Space Mission Specialist Eric Phillips, OAM of Australia, is set for an Antarctic flyover on board something rather special, FRAM-2. The FRAM-2 mission is set to become the first human spaceflight in polar orbit, flying over both North and South Poles. Named after the famous polar exploration ship Fram, which completed voyages to both the Arctic and Antarctica, FRAM-2 wants to showcase pioneering spirit, wonder and technological innovation through the ages. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch 4 astronauts from Europe and Australia into orbit for 3 to 5 days, targeted launch set for March 2025. That's soon. On board the Dragon spacecraft, Mission Commander Chung Wang of Malta, Vehicle Commander Janique Mikkelsen of Norway, pilot Rabi Rogue of Germany, and as I mentioned, mission specialist Eric Phillips of Australia. Eric is no stranger to these polar regions. Back in 98-99, together with John Muir and Peter Hillary, he skied from McMurdo Station in Antarctica to the South Pole via the Ross Ice Shelf and Shackleton Glacier. This 84-day, 1,425-kilometre ski expedition utilised traction kites to harness the wind. During the FRAM-2 mission, LB9NJ, Norwegian, and KD3AID, American call signs, will be operated by Rabi Rogue on board the amateur radio system, sending SSTV images during a mission. Eric Phillips, OAM, will become only the 4th Australian in space. Philip Chapman, Paul Scully-Power and Andy Thomas are the other 3 Aussies. They became NASA astronauts as US citizens.
From here, there and everywhere, you tune to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service. We are VK1WIA. Now with international news, Jason, VK2LAW.
Hello. Mobile phones have made communication easier for everyone, especially if your friends and family are living in remote rural areas. But what if you aren't able to reach your family living in these remote areas in times of crisis like natural disasters? That's when ham radio stations installed at the government residential schools and colleges in Karnataka can come to your rescue. As a part of this initiative, Dr. S. Satyapal, director of the Indian Institute of Hams, along with his team of ham operators, travelled across the state to install digital mobile radio stations at residential schools. Dr. Satyapal says, "We have covered approximately 5,500 kilometres by installing these DMR base stations at schools. The idea behind installing these was to help children communicate with institutions, researchers and scientists across the globe via ham. Most institutions and organisations can be connected through ham radio. IIH, the Indian Institute of Hams, has promised free training to these school students interested in writing the ham exam," he added. The Institute also conducted exams for these teachers and students. Those who were able to qualify for the exam were provided with an amateur licence by the Wireless Planning and Coordination Wing of the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology. To the USA, a ham radio operator in Idaho must pay a record $34,000 penalty for causing interference with communications during a fire suppression effort. That's the ruling from the Federal Communications Commission when they issued its notice of liability 2.5 years ago. Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel wrote, "You can't interfere with public safety communications, full stop. So today we propose the largest fine of its type for this interference on fire frequencies that put fire suppression and public safety itself at risk." The defendant acknowledged that he operated on a frequency without authorization, but argued that he did not interfere with government communications and was trying to help. He had asked for a cancellation or reduction, but the Commission has rejected his appeal. Hundreds of FM transmitters have been shut down by Switzerland's public broadcaster as radio programming there continues to move in different modes of distribution. FM radio broadcasting continued its vanishing act when in Switzerland, on the 31st of December, the Swiss Broadcasting Corporation shut off an estimated 850 analogue FM transmitters, leaving listeners the options of either internet radio or DAB+ for stations SRF1, SRF2 Colter and SRF3. The changeover by the nation's public broadcaster does leave about 24 private stations still transmitting their programs over broadcast FM. However, they're expected to follow the SBC's move, completing the transition no later than the end of 2026. The Swiss Federal Office of Communications reports that the popularity of DAB+ and internet radio has been growing consistently since 2015. While only 10% of the nation's radio listeners still tune in to broadcast FM, most while driving in their vehicles. The German Regulatory Office for Telecommunications has granted temporary access for 6 metres for Class E licence holders at 100 watts between 50 and 50.4 megahertz, and using reduced power of 25 watts between 50.4 and 52 megahertz on a non-interference basis. The trial period lasts until December of 2025 for Class E amateurs. According to the regulator's announcement, full licence holders are receiving extended access to 6 metres at the same power levels and 70.150 to 70.210 MHz in the 4 metre band at 25 watts of power on a trial basis until December 2026. Modern remote control radios are capable of incredible range, but they're still only made for line of sight use. What if you want to control a vehicle that's hundreds of kilometres away or even on the other side of the planet? Mobile phone is an option, but obviously limited by available infrastructure. Good luck getting that signal in the middle of the ocean. But what if you could beam your commands down from space? That's what Aussie YouTuber Thingify was looking to test when he put together an experimental RC boat using Starlink Mini for communications. Physically, there was no question it would work for the boat. After all, it was small, light and power efficient enough. But would the network connection be up to the task of controlling the vehicle in real time? During early ground testing, the Mini version of the Starlink receiver worked very well. Mini's power consumption peaked at around 33 watts, compared to the monstrous 180 watts for the larger receiver. On the water, there was even more good news. The bandwidth was more than enough to run a high-resolution video feedback to the command centre. At the same time, the boat moved autonomously between waypoints, and when Thingify switched over to manual control, the latency was low enough not to be a problem. We wouldn't recommend manually piloting a high-speed aircraft over Starlink, but for a boat that's cruising along at 4 kilometres an hour, the lag didn't even come into play. For VK1 WIA National News, in Sydney, I'm Jason, VK2LAW.
We are VK1WIA. Now, operational news with VK4FUQ. Felix.
Hello there. Now, contest-wise 2025. VHF UHF Field Day on now, Saturday 18 January through Sunday 19th. CQ 160 metre contest, CW January 24 through January 26. SSB February 21 until February 23. Australia Day contest, January 26. The Australia Day contest is on again in a couple of weeks. Start time is 2200 hours UTC 25 January to 1000 hours UTC 26 January. Amateurs here in VK will endeavour to contact other amateurs around the world, and some VK operators will be using the AX prefix to celebrate Australia Day, as AX is wanted by many amateurs around the world. Scoring is distance-based and calculated using 4-character grid squares. Bands to be used are 160, 80, 40, 20, 15 and 10 metre bands only. Please note, VKCL is not suitable for logging this contest. N1MM is able to be used with the files and instructions on vk4sn.com. Single and multi-op stations are allowed. Modes are SSB, CW, FT8 and FT4. The complete rules are on the wia.org.au website. Completed logs can be uploaded to the vklogchecker.com website, or you can email the ADI file to axlogs@wia.org.au. CQ 160 metre contest, SSB, February 21, 2200 hours Zulu, February 23. The IARU CQP will be held for 9 days, beginning Saturday 12 April and ending Sunday 20 April. This event will celebrate 100 years of the IARU. Harry Angel Memorial 80 metre sprint, Saturday, May 3. VK Shires contest, 7-8 June. NZ Straight Key Night, next New Zealand Straight Key Night, will be held Sunday, 8 June. DX window to the world. Thierry, TK1CX, is active in Cameroon until February. In his spare time, he is QRV as TJ/TK1CX on the 20, 17, 15, 12 and 10 metre bands, using mainly FT8 with a solar power supply. QSL via Logbook of the World, EQSL, or via EA5ZD. Kenya. Scott, WA5A, is currently on the air as 5Z4/WA5A from Ruaka on the 40 to 10 metre bands, using mostly SSB. The duration of his stay is not known at present. QSL via home call, which again is WA5A. Don, KW7R, is active as B73KW from the Marshall Islands in the northwestern Pacific Ocean. He is there on a work assignment until September, and in his spare time he operates CW and FT8 on various bands. QSL B73KW via Logbook of the World. For VK1 WIA National News, I'm Felix, VK4FUQ in England.
From here, there and everywhere, you tune to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service. We are VK1 WIA. Now, special interest group news with Cole, VK3GTV.
Hello, first up, it's Worldwide Special Interest Group News, Summits on the Air. HB20 SOTA is the special call sign of the Swiss SOTA Group, HB9 SOTA, to celebrate its 20th anniversary throughout 2025. So from the heights of the Swiss Alps, even higher, into space. Worldwide Special Interest Group's Final Frontier, launch of NASA's Blue Ghost Mission 1. Firefly Aerospace's Blue Ghost Mission 1, part of NASA's Artemis program and Commercial Lunar Payload Services, CLPS initiative, was scheduled to launch last Wednesday, January 15, carrying cutting-edge science and technology to the moon. After the launch, Firefly's Blue Ghost lander will spend approximately 45 days in transit to the moon before landing on the lunar surface in early March. The lander will carry 10 NASA science investigations to further our understanding of the moon's environment and help prepare for future human missions to the lunar surface as part of the agency's Moon to Mars exploration approach. Science investigations on this flight aim to test and demonstrate lunar subsurface drilling technology, sample collection capabilities, global navigation satellite system abilities, radiation-tolerant computing, and lunar dust mitigation methods. The data captured could benefit humans on Earth by providing insights into how space weather and other cosmic forces impact Earth. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, IOTA, SEGAR AS-153, A team of West Bengal Radio Club members are active from Sagar Island, West Bengal, now until the 20th of January. Special event call sign is AU2WBRC. The adventure schemes being participated in are Islands on the Air, AS153. All contacts will be verified through QRZ.com only. IOTA number AS161, Sacrifice Rock. Writing in the December 2002 issue of the old 73 magazine, Sri VU2SBJ called Sacrifice Rock a harsh, unwelcoming island off the coast of Kerala in southern India, a plain, solid rock in the middle of nowhere. 11 months earlier, this treacherous bit of terrain was activated for the first time by Sri and his de-expedition team, who were challenged by its difficult access and changeable weather. No hands have been there since. That is, until now. IOTA number AS161, Sacrifice Island, is about to become base camp for Team AU2V, 6 amateurs who are among many to consider it a holy grail. The expedition website calls it a dream come true for chasers. Sarah VU2RS says planning and preparation have been intense in advance for the hoped-for visit in the second week of February, when the 3-month seasonal window for access closes. The team will have 2 CW operators and 4 using SSB and digital modes, and are still working out logistics for its hours of operation. If it's not possible to arrive safely by boat, the team will need to use an aircraft. Normire 3, Antarctica, IOTA number AN016. On air until the 25th of February, mainly CW on the HF bands, but will use some SSB and digital modes, is DP1POL. QSL station DP1POL via DL1ZBO. IOTA Honour Roll and annual listings. It would appear many may miss out by forgetting to submit applications for the 2024 awards, so listen up. The last date for submitting applications or score updates to checkpoints for inclusion in the honour roll and annual listings is the 31st of January this year. If submitted after that date, they'll be processed in the normal way, but the scores will be held over to the following year's listing. Where packages with cards are involved, these need to be posted and dated before the 31st of January. Those who have not logged into their record for more than 2 years will need to revalidate their registration through info@iota-world.org. Don't leave it to the last moment, as you may run out of time. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Military. Special Event Station PA25MC will be on the air January 23rd to introduce members of the Royal Army to amateur radio. It's sponsored by the Royal Netherlands Army Signal Regiment, and the event will utilise military equipment using as many bands as possible on SSB. You may recall last year we mentioned the ham activity of this regiment as they were on jungle manoeuvres in Suriname. Well, that netted some 4,000 QSOs. This event, PA25MC, is an HF activity on January 23rd for just 1 day to introduce Marines to the world of ham radio. They'll try to use as many HF bands as possible on SSB. They remind you to please remember that amateur procedures are new to them, but will do everything to get up to speed quickly. Marines are used to speaking English, but naturally keep their communication short. The organisers would really appreciate it if you contribute to a successful event by connecting with them. PA25MC is organised and supported by PI4VBD, the club station of the Royal Army. Their station will always comply with the user regulations and regulations for radio amateurs and has no military function. Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Radio Amateur Young Timers, YOTA, Youngsters on the Air. And it's over to Alan, VK2COD.
Thank you, Cole. Today we are off to New York State in America. The Binghamton Amateur Radio Association hosted an Amateur Radio Kids Day at Bessou Fire Department Station Number 2 on the 6th of January. Kids had the chance to use the radio station set up at the event to make calls to an amateur radio operator across the world. The organizers said that the event was a big success with about 40 people in attendance. Twice a year, the ARRL offers an event designed to promote amateur radio to youth. On ARLL Kids Day, which will be the next Saturday, 21st June, is where the hams can share the public excitement with your own kids, grandkids, a scout troop, a church, or the general public. The ARRL Kids Day is designed to give on-the-air experience to we young people and to foster interest in getting a license of their own. It is intended to give older hams a chance to share their station and love for their amateur radio with their children. The ARRL Kids Day always runs from 1800 UTC through 2359 UTC. I hope VK clubs pick up on the hint for Yoda activities from this news item and send us your story after you do it. For VK1 WIA National News, I am Alan, VK2 in Sydney. Now back to you, Cole.
Thanks, Alan. Next up, it's Worldwide Special Interest Groups Radio Scouting. On February 15, Girl Guiding members celebrate World Thinking Day on the air. The aim of this event is to encourage Girl Guiding members to make friendships with those in other units using amateur radio as the means of communication. On this day, Crawley Amateur Radio Club will be hosting special event call sign GB1SCG, which relates to Sussex Central Guides. Girl Guiding members of all ages will have the opportunity to celebrate by communicating via the amateur bands. VK information might be available from Lorraine, VK2 FICQ, who is Girl Guides Australia National Jota Jotty Coordinator. Worldwide Special Interest Groups Rescue Radio. Ham radio operators serving during California firestorms. As the firestorms across Southern California continue to threaten millions of residents, trained amateur radio operators are serving critical volunteer roles to help officials spot fires before they get out of control. Dry conditions and wind gusts of 100 miles per hour have fueled days of devastating wildfires. Entire neighborhoods have been leveled by the infernos. The Eaton fire burned to the top of Mount Wilson, a critical logistical post for broadcast radio and television stations, as well as communications across the Southland. Federal agencies, air traffic control, local emergency responders, radio amateurs, and others all share tower space on the mountain. While the main fires have been burning north and northwest of the central section of Los Angeles, just to the south, hams are standing watch. Orange County Fire Watch, OCFW, is a program locally organised by the Orange County Parks Department and the Irvine Conservancy. ARRL National Instructor Gordon West, WB6NOA, is among the deployed volunteers. He said hams are stepping up. We're all over the ARRL orange section on hilltops, reporting the wind and humidity, ash seen coming down, scanning for spot fires, thankfully none so far, smoke from the LA fires, guest activities at the parks, and being a presence at trailheads with reflective vests and vehicle signs indicating fire watch, he said. Radio amateurs are also ready and able to serve at evacuation centres, providing support as needed. And our thoughts are with them all. For VK1WIA National News, I'm Cole, VK3GTV.
It's a date on the social scene. This weekend, January 19 at 11 a.m, the Reist Car Boot Sale. VK3 Barg Hamfest, the 2nd of February. In VK6, Pargfest Peel Amateur Radio Group. That'll be held February 19, 9 a.m. at Mandurah Bowling Club. In VK4, Redcliffe and District Radio Club Redfest, April 12. Make a note of it, the new venue, Deception Bay North State School. The WIA AGM May 3 and 4, hosted by Bendigo Amateur Radio and Electronics Club. And VK5 Surg Convention and Fox Hunting Championship, June 7 and 8.
This is John, VK5 DJ for the Southeast Radio Group. Will there be a 2025 Surge Convention? Absolutely. Following the success of the 2024 Convention and Fox Hunting Championship, the club made a unanimous vote to do it again in 2025. Details still to come, but it will be on the King's birthday weekend in June. That's the 7th and 8th, in our usual venue at the Scout Hall in Mount Gambier and Environs. Our Foxes will be planning their usual challenges. Did we hear the more mud the better? Time to make accommodation bookings. The King's holiday weekend is a popular tourist time in Mount Gambier. See you there.
See you there, we will. And we'll see you here, we will, same time next week for the WIA National News Service. Of course, until then, I'm Graham, VK4BB. Walk softly.
From Australia, this has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and your voice, your callbacks. And don't forget, tick like.
The signature of the declining phase of the solar cycle is here, and big flares and stealthy solar storms are back. Those stories and more are in this week's Spotlight. Space weather this week is beginning to look a lot like the declining phase of the solar cycle. As we take a look at our Earth-facing disk, we do still have a lot of active regions in Earth view, but they haven't been firing a lot of big solar flares, although that's about to change here over the next 24 hours as we take a look at a couple new regions rotating into Earth view as well as region 3964, but more about that in a minute. As we really focus in on the big story of this week, it's these set of coronal holes that we're seeing here rotating through the Earth strike zone now. The first one is really kind of a thin finger-like coronal hole, and the second one is this one that's equatorial and then kind of dives south a little bit. Believe it or not, these are two coronal holes that will end up stitching together into one most likely. We will see that probably in about 27 days when these sets of coronal holes rotate back into Earth view. Meanwhile, right now, we're not getting a lot of fast wind from these coronal holes because they're just really developing, but we've got a little bit of fast wind from this one, and then over the next few days, expect to get some stronger fast wind from this second coronal hole right here. It's likely going to ramp up slowly and then kind of last over probably through the 19th and the 20th. So aurora photographers, if you're at high latitudes, you definitely could be, well, you're probably already getting a little bit of a show, but you could get a bit more of a show over an extended period. And believe it or not, there's more coming, because as we take a look over the last 24 hours, we watch region 3964 begin to emerge on the Earth-facing disk. You can see it right here. You can even see it kind of playing around with a little bit of a filament here. It's not quite sure that it was erupting, but as we pay close attention to this coronal hole right here, as I back it up just a little bit, watch as this region emerges. Watch this coronal hole right here pinch down a little bit. You'll see it actually begin to get smaller right about now. Whoosh, do you see it kind of shrinking right there? Yeah, it's pinching in. Believe it or not, that was actually a stealthy solar storm launch. And this one is likely headed toward Earth because this is in the Earth strike zone. So along with the fast solar wind, we're likely going to get a chance for a stealthy solar storm to give us a plus up in that activity. So aurora photographers, right around the 19th, maybe midday into the 20th, we could see a stealthy solar storm hitting Earth. And that's going to be good news for you. Plus, on top of that, as we continue watching region 3964, look at it. It's firing pow, pow. We're firing a couple big M-class flares here. And these are actually looking like they're going to be launching another solar storm. So we could have yet a second solar storm heading toward Earth. It's kind of hard to tell right now, but we'll be paying close attention to this region over the next couple days. And take a look at all this activity on the east limb of the sun. These are new regions that are going to be rotating into Earth view here over the next couple days. They do look like they could be giving us a bigger flare chance for flare activity, including radio blackouts. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders, expect that solar flux to climb, and also expect those radio blackouts and the risk for radio blackouts to increase over this coming week. And while we wait for solar storms to give us some decent aurora, here is a veteran photographer and aurora storm chaser to give you some highlights from some recent big solar storms.
So hi, I'm here in Tamitha's studio today, and it's pretty awesome. to be honest. So here talking about the May 10th events. So we're going to start with Split Rock Rally House right behind me. I feel like I'm there again. I really do. But this particular event was pretty significant. It was a G5. What's neat about this image is that's south facing. So there was a point when me and my friend were driving up, and we were like, "Are we going too far north for this?" So huge shout out to my friend that took me up there because I couldn't drive at the time too. So he got a split rock shot as well out of the deal. So that's what you get when you travel with me, I guess. These are also from the May 10th event, and it's Minnesota still. But what makes these really special is just the colors. And this one right here is one of the Coronas that we got to see, and it was really spectacular. Just watching the whole thing unfold, it was very quick. But this is a 12 millimeter shot, so you can just imagine how big that was. It was and it looked like an angel, so that's why I named it Angel. And then on this one over here, that is Gooseberry Falls, and that's another one that it faces relatively north. So this is kind of residual, more north-facing stuff, but all the cool stuff was happening south. I will always remember this about May 10th up there. Like, it kind of reframed some of my own thoughts on aurora chasing in general, because this G5 stuff, I might want to be somewhere like Utah or Colorado or somewhere more unique where you don't get this type of activity. But yeah, so G5s are spectacular, and I'm glad that so many people got to see this too. I think it was we had relatively clear skies across the whole U.S. I believe that day, so it was really pretty phenomenal. And that'll be my cut there.
Now, switching to our moon, we are now coming out of the full moon and on our way to a third quarter. And by the 22nd, the moon will be almost 50% illuminated. So, you night sky watchers, if you want to catch those dim objects in the sky, well, you're going to have this bright companion. So you're going to need to check your local rise and set times. And now, switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are anticipating the hit from the fast solar wind. Now, we've already gotten a little bit of fast solar wind from the first coronal hole, but that second coronal hole is going to be a bit stronger. So at high latitudes, NOAA's expecting minor storm conditions, and this should be up on the 17th. We could see up to about a 50% chance of a major storm, with then things kind of calming down just a little bit over the 18th. But by the 19th, we should be back into some fast solar wind, along with possibly getting hit by that stealthy solar storm and maybe even a second solar storm after that, because that launched with region 3964 emerging on the Earth-facing disk. So aurora photographers, if you're at high latitudes, my goodness, you have an extended chance to get some aurora shots in there, and things won't be calming down possibly until this upcoming Tuesday. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Now, for aurora photographers at mid-latitudes, well, right now we're sitting pretty much at unsettled conditions. It's not quite active conditions, but there is a little bit of activity happening. We are having a wind watch for that second coronal hole that's going to be rotating in through the Earth strike zone. And by the 19th, we could see active conditions. Again, this is from that stealthy solar storm and possibly another solar storm that's just being launched, kind of in the process of, I'm recording this right now. NOAA's expecting about a 20% chance of minor storm conditions. I'm going to keep that risk out until at least Sunday. Because of the stealthy solar storm, we actually might get a chance to see minor storm conditions on that day. And then things will calm back down quite quickly after that, because I'm not expecting these storms to be all that strong. So aurora photographers, if you're at mid-latitudes, well, only if you're dedicated should you chase, but there is the possibility of some nice shows. And now, switching to our solar flare and dayside radio blackout outlook over the coming week, we are sitting well into the 200s for solar flux, and this means that the radio propagation on Earth's dayside is in the good range. However, we are dealing with moderate noise levels on the dayside radio bands, and likely these noise levels are going to be climbing here over the next 24 hours, possibly 48 hours, and we will be getting into more frequent radio blackout territory, sadly. NOAA's giving us about a 50% 50% chance of M-class flares over the next couple days. That's likely going to rise as region 3964 gets reassessed because we're seeing it grow quite rapidly. And we have those new regions rotating into Earth view here over the next couple days. But we're seeing at about a 15% chance of X-class flares right now. And again, that might rise just a little bit as we continue watching region 3964 and these new regions rotate into view. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, it looks like the reprieve is over. So expect noise to get more frustrating for you on the dayside radio bands over this week and possibly into next week before things begin to calm down. And now switching to our radiation storm and polar aviation outlook over the coming week. Well, everything is pretty much in the green this week. We are sitting at the D1 normal range. This is at flight level 360 for you aviators. It's also the S0 quiet range for everybody else. And likely these conditions are going to continue. We're not going to have any big threat for radiation storms. In fact, NOAA's giving us only about a 5% chance of an S1 to S2 radiation storm over the next 3 days. And that is likely going to continue, but again, we have to take a look at region 3964 because it's growing quite quickly. I do believe we will see that risk rise just a little bit as we move into next week, and that's because we have a couple regions that are rotating to the sun's west limb, and also region 3964 looks like it could become a big player here. We're just going to have to wait and see. So as long as you pay attention to those ICAO advisories, you high-risk passengers, and this does mean air crew and you frequent flyers, well, right now, everything is in the clear, but be sure to keep on your toes. So the space weather this week is looking a lot like the declining phases kicking in. We have two coronal holes that are rotating in through the Earth strike zone. The first one hasn't been giving us all that much fast wind, but the second one promises to be a little bit stronger, but I'll bet you we're going to see them in about 27 days from now. So aurora photographers, hey, this is the period when you can start planning ahead. So expect to get some aurora, a little bit of aurora this time. We might even have a stealthy solar storm hitting us right around the 19th. And if you're at high latitudes, you definitely could be getting some decent shows, but if you're at mid latitudes, well, only if you're dedicated should you chase. And now amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, you know, that looks like the wonderful reprieve that we've been enjoying from radio blackouts is going to end here really soon. We are seeing some activity from region 3964, and we also have a couple new regions that are going to be rotating into Earth view from the on the east limb, and those promise to be a bit more flare active as well. So expect the radio noise to go up on the bands and expect those radio blackouts more often. And now you GPS users, well, we're not expecting huge solar storm impacts. Even the fast solar wind is going to be a little bit on the weak side. So on the night side, it shouldn't be too bad for GPS reception, but we do have those radio blackouts that are going to start ramping up. So that makes dawn and dusk kind of a dicey area for you. So as long as you stay vigilant during those times, and of course, anytime you're under aurora, your GPS reception should be okay. I'm Tamitha Skov, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.